Hello everyone, my name is Jen and welcome to the Book Refuge. Hello my friends, welcome to my March wrap up. I am so excited. This month was just full of some amazing books, new releases in series that I really love. My birthday, yes, I am now 31. I am like, that's strange, but also like it's cool. I'm cool with it. I'm pretty happy with how things are going for being 31, which is still strange. But yeah, thank you to everyone who celebrated with me, who sent me well wishes, who sent gifts. It was so kind of you. I feel very blessed. And yeah, so I did ask in my last video if you guys still wanted me to share my stats. I think that was last month. I don't even remember. And for the most part, all of you said yes. So if you're not interested in the stats, you can just move right along until I start holding up the books, because I will talk about my 5 favorite reads of the month. That is what I kind of focus in this. But I'll start with talking about my stats, because stats are for nerds, and I'm a nerd. A lot of you are nerds. I love sharing about that. And then we'll get into my top 5 reads, and I'll go in a little bit of detail about them. If you came here looking for me to talk about all of the books I read this month, I actually don't put that all in one video because I read quite a bit, as you'll see. But if you're new here and you want to catch up with what I've been reading, I have a playlist that has all of my weekly wrap-ups. I do weekly wrap-ups talking about everything, where I go pretty in depth. I like to give a lot of context and background to the books that I read, because that's what I want from people, and that's what I like to get from reviewers and what I like to give. So definitely check that out. But anyway, let's go into the stats and get into everything. So this month, I read 44 books, which was 15,671 pages, which is doing pretty good. That is like almost 10 more books than last month, but, there's more days, obviously, too. The breakdown of this one is just, guys, it is nuts what my breakdown is, okay? I had 16 ebooks, 10 physical books, 9 audiobooks, and 21 arcs. Yeah, I've talked about this already, the arc situation. I need to stop, but also I'm having so much fun with them. And I was just invited into this audio review group called Must Love Audio, or MLA, that is run actually by a few narrators as well as some other like social media people. And it's very exciting to me because, of course, I love audios, and getting advanced copies of audios can be very difficult. So we'll definitely see some more of those, and see a video I just made this last week that was ways that you can get free books. A lot of that is talking about how you can get onto ARC teams and get free advanced copies of books in exchange for reviewing them. And you don't need to have a substantial media presence at all to get started with this, because a lot of ARC teams are just looking for honest reviews from people, and people that are fans of them, ideally, right? So anyway, sorry, I did a whole 40-minute video about that, so go check that out if you're interested. But then the ratings of these books were, I had 10 5 stars, 5 4.5 stars, 16 4 stars, 7 3.5, 3 3 star, 1 2.5, and 2 DNFs. So the case with, I do want to mention the DNFs, because one of the DNFs I do plan to go back to. It's called First Flight by Jenn something. I always mispronounce her name, because she actually sent me a copy of this book, and I just wasn't in the like mindset to read it at the moment. So, I didn't want to force myself, because I had a lot of other arcs to get through, as you could tell. But that is one that I DNF'd that I will go back to. The other one I DNF'd was another arc that I won't be going back to, and I'll speak about that, or will speak about that in my weekly wrap up for week 13. So check that out, because I don't want to spend time on books that I didn't like in this video. But yeah, those are the ratings. No new 6-star reads this month, but I'm going to talk about when I get to what my faves are, there is a book that has a potential to become a 6-star read this year, but currently it's at a 5 because it's a part of a trilogy that isn't complete, and it's not a like standalone, you know, like the book, the trilogy is really a single story. So, yeah. The subgenres of this were 14 contemporary, 9 dark romance, 1 dystopian, 5 erotic romance, 3 fan fictions, 4 fantasy romance, 4 historical romance, 2 paranormal, and 2 science fiction. Or alien is usually what that means when it's a sci-fi. So yeah, that is the breakdown. Quite the like kind of like even distribution this month, you know, like I don't know. I like that, seeing it all spread out like that anyway. So yeah, that is the stats. So let's get into my top 5, which again, I didn't have any new 6-star reads, but there was still some really good ones, okay? And all of these 5 are ones that I haven't stopped thinking about. So the first one I want to mention is Blitzed by Devney Perry. This is the second book in the, I think it's like the Wildcat State or something like that. It's in Montana. And this one is a coach and a student athlete. Now it is college, and she is, I believe, 21 going into 22. And he's not her coach. So it's still kind of taboo. It's still forbidden, and we'll get into that. But if you're someone who like taboo makes you really uncomfortable, this one I would just consider more forbidden because, again, he's not the one coaching her. It's just he's on the coaching staff and she's an athlete and it's forbidden. So this one I did listen to the audiobook because this audiobook came out the same day as the ebook, and I really like that. So Blitzed is about our hero who, shoot, I should have kept them out. I should have kept out the list with names, but I didn't. But anyway, our hero is one of the assistant football coaches, which the hero in the previous book was brought in to be one of them as well. And these guys actually went to school together. And at the beginning, or near like the middle of the summer, he has like this 4th of July barbecue, and everyone in his neighborhood is invited to it. And it's just wild and crazy. And there's this woman there who he's never seen before. She must be new to his neighborhood, but he doesn't know like where she lives. And she's just beautiful. And they have this amazing connection right away. And we don't really see anything happen in this like prologue part, but we can tell that they were really vibing. And then we skip ahead 3 weeks, and it's time for school to get back in session for the athletes, right? So they're going to get started, you know, back in training before everyone else is. And then we meet our heroine, who is a volleyball player, and she is transferred to this school because of some previous drama at another school. So she's just looking to be here, keep her head down. She's a senior. She's actually the daughter of a very famous volleyball player. And so she feels a lot of pressure to do well. But she also is very like isolated because part of the scandal from where she was before came from like trusting the wrong people. So she's very isolated. And when she's getting introduced to the coaching staff, including like all the other sports coaches, she realizes, you know, seeing the man that she had this one night stand with is one of the coaches. So they both are freaked out about this. They both are like, this could totally get in the way of our lives. He could lose his job. She could lose her scholarship. She's already left a school before. It's her senior year. She just wants to make it through. So they are very cautious. Now, though, there's one other thing. Why was this woman at his neighborhood barbecue? Well, turns out she's his neighbor, which he did not know because when his new neighbor moved in, it was this like, you know, middle-aged couple. Well, they actually bought the house for their daughter, who's also in college, and then 2 people are living there with her. So he didn't know this. And so not only is she this athlete who's now like tempting him all the time, but she's also his next door neighbor. So yeah, that is their like issues there. And one of the things I liked throughout this book, I am not always someone who enjoys flashbacks. Y'all have known if you're around. I get really irritated with flashbacks if there's more than like 1 or 2, because I want you to tell the current story we're doing, you know. Again, unless it's a time jump, which again, I don't always love those, but I don't usually like us to continually go back to the past because I want to see us falling in love in the future, not seeing how things fell apart before. However, since this one is really only flashing back to like that night in the summer, we see different little snippets of what their night was like, you know, not just them having sex, but them like connecting and her staying to help him clean up and them talking, but they never got around to saying what their careers were. And she never mentioned being a student. She just had this fling with this hot older guy and thought it was great. So yeah, that is their trouble. And so we have these little snippets of that, and we can just see that they have this amazing connection. They have this bond that it would be so sad to miss out on because of this short amount of time, right? She's in her last year of school and he has just never had this connection. So anyway, there is, you know, of course, I just really loved this forbidden romance because it was just that kind of forbidden that, you know, it doesn't feel icky. It just gives it the right amount of sexual tension. They also are like abstaining too. So one of the things that can be a little, I mean, not necessarily frustrating, but kind of ruins the tension is that if a forbidden couple, or, you know, is like banging right from the beginning, right? And what I thought was so smart about having them have had their night at the beginning, but we don't see the sex. We just know that they're just wild for each other and that it was so good. Like we can feel the chemistry, but we didn't like see it explode yet, you know? And so their tension of like trying to stay away from each other was done so well. You know, the example that I do put in, and I loved this book, but Here With Me by Brooke Montgomery has a forbidden romance between these two, but they are finding ways to touch and kiss and fuck each other pretty much the whole time. They don't really abstain, which again, it's hot. I like that book. But this one, it just did it in such a beautiful way where like you feel the burn, like the slow smoldering burn of it. And it's also like the tension of like they know what they're missing because it was this crazy sexual connection that they had, you know. It's the best of, in my opinion, of like a one night stand and a forbidden romance. So okay, then 4 books that, well, all of these were very highly anticipated books, but I can't lie that the next, like all of these were very anticipated. So there was The Wickedness of a Highlander by Lisa Braden. So this is book 4 in Midnight in Scotland. And this one is about Sabella Lockhart, who we met in a previous book. Her brother was kind of a villain and he did some kidnapping and dastardly deeds. Her brother is dead now, but he's left a lot of difficulties behind. And so then we have Alexander McPherson, who despises her for reasons, some of them having to do with her brother, but also perceptions he has of her. And yeah, and so she actually has come to Scotland to, number 1, lay her bodyguard to rest. He has died and she has like brought him back to be laid to rest. And also she wanted to like make good with the McPhersons because she feels horrible about how things went down with her brother and she didn't want to be a part of them. But I mean, she was being forced into a lot of things by her brother. It was awful. But Alexander is the only McPherson who's around because everybody else is like gone. Some of them are in London visiting family. One of them's on a trip. Like there's nobody around but him. And also when she gets there, she gets robbed of everything. And now she's stuck. And, you know, her only option outside of prostitution is to become a maid. But guess what? She's never had to be a maid. Like it isn't because she is spoiled or, you know, too good for it. She just, like, her family had money, so she didn't have to do any of those things, right? Like, you wouldn't know how to do them if you didn't know how to do them either. But twists of fate come. Alexander ends up giving her a job at his place, but it's just her and him working in his place. It's a pigsty. She doesn't know how to do any of the things. So there's just a lot. I love watching her like cooking and cleaning journey, you know, asking advice of other ladies around town, learning how to clean good, trying to make him meals, and he will eat every meal she makes, even when it is disgusting. which is just, it's really endearing. And I did give this book 5 stars, right? It's in my favorites, but there is some things in hindsight that I don't quite know if they played out as smoothly as I wanted to. So this is one of those where there's a secret that the hero's keeping from her the whole time, and we know that it's going to be used as a conflict of sorts. Like, we know it, and just the way the hero held on to this pretty inconsequent, like, it was a secret that only could have benefited him to tell her if he'd been the one to tell her, but because he doesn't and she finds out, well, now it's a chasm between them. You know, he could have looked like a hero if he'd shared it, but at the time, I know I'm being vague, but I'm not trying to spoil this fully. Like, we waited a long time for this book, so definitely read it. Read this series. It's so good. But he was angry at her in the beginning, right? So he wasn't honest about what he knew. But as their feelings progress, they actually end up having to do a marriage of convenience. Of course, he says it's a marriage of convenience, but really he's just obsessed with her and wants her for his own. But instead of admitting what he knew, he gets caught, and it's a big deal. There's also a suspense plot that doesn't quite work. And upon reflecting and actually talking with Justin, oh wow, this is a theme. Like, I'm very green for March. I didn't even do this on purpose. I'm so sorry. That was absolutely a sidetrack. Squirrel over there. But I was looking at this beautiful green book and then realizing I dressed totally in green for my March wrap up. So I'm cool. Anyway, moving on. You know, this book got pushed back quite a few times. Well, we didn't even have a date for a long time. This got pushed back, I think, twice. It got pushed back. Some of it was Elisa Braden has been ill the past. Y'all, I'm sorry. My camera, I keep getting phone calls. So this is the downside of using your phone, right? I've used my phone for 6 years to do this. But the downside is, even if you have your calls turned off, right? If you get calls while you're filming, it will like give you a little warning or whatever. And then I had to go in, and then I just got a bunch of stuff all at once, and it was enough that it shut my camera down. So anyway, sorry, I don't know where I ended talking, but anyway, this got pushed back a couple of times. And I think, you know, with that in mind, I'm not holding that against her at all. Like I said, I gave this 5 stars, and I'm not going to take that away. In fact, I'm looking forward to, like, the audiobook will be out this summer. I will absolutely reread once the audiobook is here, but I feel like this one's the weakest of the series, because I don't think she had it fully fleshed out when she started writing it. Or maybe what she was writing didn't work, and so she changed something. And maybe that could be the reason for some of the delays. Because it just feels like there is a first and almost second act that is very well-rounded, and then when we have the conflict and the bit of suspense element, it just didn't work too well. So, but I'm still left this one with 5 stars. It was wonderful. Also, thank you, Jennifer Mack, for sending me this. She actually sent me 2 books this month, 2 books that I really, really love. So thank you, Jennifer Mack, for sending me this. Okay, next up, we have The Homewrecker by Sarah Kate. Oh, I was so excited for this one. So Sarah Kate is someone who writes MMF that I die for, okay? I really, really enjoy it. She hasn't written a ton of them, and I think that that's good. You know, I love an author who will write different pairings and different situations, where some authors, you know, they're going to write their MF or MM or, you know, poly, and that's all that they write, which can still be a really good thing. You know, they get really good at it. But I think there's something about an author who they tell the story that's presented to them, like the story they feel they want to write, and they don't worry about if their readers will read it or not. They know we want it. Does that make sense? You know, I said this before in regards to, there's an MM series that I really like. There's a, but there is a like female in there that I think would have been paired with one of the men so well. You know, if they had been bisexual instead or whatever. But because the author is like, no, this will only be MM in this series, I, like, when that man was then put with another man, it, like, didn't fit, because that wasn't the chemistry that they had created. Anyway, that was a side note. Author's gonna do what they're gonna do with their characters. That's not the part that I'm here to judge. I'm here to judge how well the story they actually wrote came out. And I knew that this one was gonna be good. Now, Sarah Kate, she was very honest, and when the tropes got revealed for this one, people were a bit nervous. So we knew this was going to be an MMF. But, you know, and we maybe had a little bit of a clue because, you know, there is one of the brothers who is married. And so this being called Homewrecker, you know, there was one couple that was married already and the other brothers aren't in any relationship. So unless it had been one of them who was doing the wrecking, which it could have been, I assumed it was going to be this couple because they're very much in love. They've been married 6 years, but something's a bit like missing. They're trying for another baby. So there's a trigger warning for infertility in this. They have one child already, but they're trying for another. And it's not happening, and it's making their sex life too mechanical. We've seen this storyline before. Then we have Dean, who actually is a sex worker, and he works, basically he works out of the club that Sage and Adam own, who that's from the Anti-Hero. And he is a dom or whatever people need. He often actually does some like scenes. He does scenes with both men and women. He does couples, and he's very good at it. But actually lately he hasn't been able to orgasm. He just hasn't been in it. He's able to get hard and like do what he wants, but he's not really deriving the pleasure that he used to out of it, we'll say. And it could be he has a lot on his mind. So he actually has a very sick dad. And what is the like impetus of this is that his father accidentally starts a fire in their home. And so Dean needs to find a place for them to live. And Dean gets offered, like, I think he hears it from Sage and Adam is where it is that Blair and Caleb, is it Blair? Let me just make sure now. Blair. Sorry. Yeah, Briar. Sorry, Briar. I was like, it starts with a B. They have a garage apartment that they were thinking of renting out. And it's like, well, this could be perfect. The only thing is, Dean and Caleb know each other. Dean was actually the like high school boyfriend of his brother, the missing brother, the prodigal. And you know, we find out more about why he was gone in this one. You know, the way that this series is leading, the last book is going to be about this brother. It's going to be called The Prodigal. It's going to be about him. And we knew in the first one, like, Adam writes some letters to him. He misses him. And Caleb, he really loved his younger brother, but he knew his younger brother was gay, like he could tell. And he was very afraid of what his father would do or react. And what he's never shared with anyone is part of the reason he was so worried for his brother is because he also had some sexual feelings for men. He has never explored them. He found a woman that he really loved and he stayed with her. So he's never explored that other side. But it's just important to remember that part of his interactions with his brother had to do with his own like stuff that he was hiding. And Dean was dating this brother. They, you know, I think it said they hadn't even had like sex. They had just been fooling around. They were young. They were just experiencing it. And when the father found out, Dean always blamed Caleb for the brother getting kicked out. And so he's hated him for what it's been like 10 years or so. It's been a while. So anyway, they have a bit of a history. And so Caleb, of course, you know, Briar and Caleb let him move in, and Caleb is very like suspicious of him. He doesn't like what he does for work. He's just, you know, some things he's bringing from his religion, but also a lot of it is just coming from he's suspicious of Dean and he makes him uncomfortable. And a lot of it is he thinks he's very attractive. Also the memories he brings him up of his brother. Sorry, there's a lot of layers to this. But it is true that Briar and Dean start having an attraction, and she would like not do anything about it, but things kind of escalate to the point where Dean almost makes a bet against Caleb that he can get his wife to do something with him. So it gets gamified a little bit. Now, some people, you just won't like that, and it's okay, but it works for me because, yes, Dean wants to get back at Caleb a little bit, but he also sees that these two do really love each other and that they need help. So it would be a little too kind to Dean to say that he knew that he was only going to do this to end up helping them, but there's more to it. Like, he is wanting to get a dig at Caleb, and when they have this conversation, he's like, I bet I can get your wife to do whatever. So this pot does get like stirred up, and Dean does end up making a move on her, and she does give in a little bit. She does. And that, of course, then makes Caleb so mad, and it like starts this fight between them, except this is when Dean helps. And he's like, you both are looking for something, and I think you're afraid to explore it on your own. What if we explore it together? And now it starts as, Dean shares that, Caleb, I don't know if you know, but like your wife wants to be submissive. She wants to give over control to you sometimes. And Bohrer's like, oh, how do you know this? Oh my God. And Dean is like, this is something that I know how to do. So I can teach you, Caleb, how to dom your wife and maybe help you be more comfortable and see that she likes it. And that is where like that kicks off for the story. Now, I've already said enough. I know some of you might have already skipped some of what I said too, but I wanted to get to that point of it to explain the cheating part of it, because this does have cheating as a trigger warning, and it's going to be like a hard line for some people. Usually cheating is for me. The times when I'm okay with cheating is when it turns into an MMF. I usually am. And particularly how I've seen Sarah write them before, like both of her previous menages. Well, there's been even more than that, but her MMF and her FFM was with like a couple who's already in a relationship and someone coming into it. This one just starts with a little bit more secrecy that quickly gets fleshed out. And yeah, I loved how that happened. And then the part that like, I won't spoil this, but why I loved it so much wasn't just the sexual connection. It was a storyline of Dean's that he's dealing with his father, and his like isolation that he's felt. I don't want to spoil all of it, but that is what pushed us over the edge. In the same way that Give Me More, that one of the husband in that one needed to work on stuff in his past, and that is something that that Dean has to do in this. And he really does help bring Caleb and Bohrer closer than ever, and also have room for him as well too. So that's enough. I talked way more about this one than I meant to, but when I first talked about this in my weekly wrap up, I barely talked about it at all because it wasn't out yet. Now it's out. You can get yourself a copy of it. And I love this so much. I want to reread this and like put all of my lines into it that I liked from the book. And yeah, I just think it was so good. Y'all. It's great. And still, I know not everyone's going to want a cheating and MMF. Like, that's fine. Just don't read it then. It's okay. But if you love that kind of stuff, I think that Sarah Kate does it the best of a lot of people, right? Okay, next up, we know this one had to show up, right? We have Hills of Shivers and Shadows, which is the first book in the Frozen Fate series. If you don't know, Pam Godwin was on my channel like last week talking about the series. Book 2 is coming in April. The cover just got released today, actually, that I'm filming this. And then the third book will be coming later this year. It keeps being pushed a little bit because I think it's so much. It's just so much that she is putting out and everything. So yeah, this one is the beginning of it. And I actually, I know I said about the homewrecker I wouldn't talk too much, but this one I actually won't, because in my weekly wrap up where I read this book, I have a full like spoiler section on it that goes over the trigger warnings. I have 2 levels of trigger warnings, and then like why I loved it so much. But I just want to say that this was a very powerful story. It's still going. And this is the book that I said I currently have it at 5 stars. But it has a potential to be 6 stars, because for me, I'm going to consider the whole trilogy either like a 5 or a 6 star, but I need to see where it's going, because this has a cliffhanger. Absolutely, it has a cliffhanger. The next one will have a cliffhanger, And then the third will be a polyamorous HEA. So, yeah. But in the most basic terms of this, our heroine is Frankie, and at the beginning of this book, she gets kidnapped by this man named Denver, and he takes her to a remote home in the Arctic Circle with him and his 3 sons. We don't know why these people live there. We don't know what Denver wants to do with her, and we don't know how she could escape. And she does have a husband that she gets kidnapped from, and she absolutely does not want to be there, and she's going to do everything she can to get out of there. But there are secrets and deception that is happening all around her. Who's the good, who's the bad in this, and how will she survive it? Does she want to survive it? All of these things. This definitely has some elements of horror in it, but I would consider it more like romantic suspense. And yeah. So that's where we're going. I don't want to say anything else. But yeah, you can go check out that review I have if you want to know like much more of the setup, as well as some of the trigger warnings and spoilers for that. However, if you can handle everything, like if you can handle all the things, I do suggest you go in blind. I would never demand that of people. Well, of course, I'm not going to demand anything, but I fully believe you should get to know whatever you want to know about a book before you read it, because it's your time and it's your story. And if you process a story better by being prepared for stuff, absolutely go look at the trigger warnings on hers, go watch my thing. But if you trust Pam Godwin and you like dark, twisted romance and you want some suspense in it, I suggest you go in blind, because you will be on the edge of your seat. It's fantastic. So, okay. Really moving on. Okay, and then the last one, which I almost was going to have the book in time, but it got delayed a day. But there was Darkest Sin by Neva Altaj. This is my favorite book by her. It's 5 stars, absolutely. This is another one that I almost made 6 stars, but I kept it at 5 because it's so good. It's so good, but it had to overcome a lot. I also talk about this one in a recent review where I think I do some spoilers for that. But this one is a mafia romance, but it's a mafia princess and it's a hitman. And he doesn't work for any like specific mafia. He actually is a like offshoot of a hidden government agency type thing, and he's almost a super soldier, not like legitimate super soldier of like he doesn't have a super serum in him, but since he was a child he's been raised to be a killer, and now that's all he knows is he gets a name and he goes and he kills them. He gets a name, he gets how he's supposed to kill them, and he goes and does it. He doesn't have any feelings for anyone, and he knows someday he's gonna die doing this job. So this is Kai. And if you've read other books in the series, you may have heard him mentioned because one of the other heroes was in the same unit as him, I believe. It's been a while, but we hear mention of him back then. And then we have our heroine, who is, as I said, a mafia princess, and she is currently going to school to be a vet, but that's really her father humoring her. He's eventually going to ask her to marry someone, and she's not going to be able to work. But for now, she is interning at a vet. And one night when she is locking up, which I think it's interesting that like the intern would be locking it up by themselves, whatever, it's story time. She finds a man bleeding in an alley, and that is Kai. And she wants to get him help, and he's like, you can't take me to the police. So she ends up taking him into the vet's office and closing him up. And he is able to, he lives through this, and now he feels like he owes this little, she's not a little girl, but this small, petite, beautiful woman, he feels like he owes her something. So he becomes her silent watchdog, aka stalker, for the next like few months. And whenever he's not working a job, he'll check in on her. He'll see it. He'll make sure she's okay. He saves her a time or two from people who would, cause trouble for her. He's that type of guy. And slowly she begins to count on him being the shadow watching her. And they begin to have a connection that is more than just stalker and victim, or whatever you want to call it. And when her father finally picks someone for her to marry and she's going to be forced into this marriage, Kai goes ballistic and murders pretty much all of this mafia clan that, at least that's at the church when they're going to force her to marry someone. And now he can't deny anymore that this is just him watching. Like, he's like, you're mine. No one else is going to have you. However, they think this relationship is completely a secret, but it is not. And someone knows, and someone doesn't want to let Kai go too easily. So, again, check out my video if you want to know some more of the tropes, because there is one or two that are kind of a secret. But I mean, if you read the prologue, you'll know what the end is. It's that kind of thing. But yeah, I loved this. Like I said, this one is a hitman, and it's an age gap. It's hidden identity. She doesn't even know his name for a long time. She calls him her demon, and he calls her his little tiger cub, which is adorable. I'm sorry, it's cute. And yeah, it was wonderful. I loved it so much. So those were my 5 favorite books in March, as well as my stats and everything. Let me know what your favorite read was. I do have links to all the books I talked about. If you want to purchase one of them, it does help out the channel. Thank you to my patrons and my channel members who help make this happen. If you'd like to support me here, please go ahead and check those out in the description. Thanks so much for watching, friends, and we'll see you next time.